Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Sylvain, how you doing? Chris Alexander, aren't you supposed to be out of town? All right, hang on. Let's bring a couple people in here. Good morning, good morning, good morning, Chris. Thank you so much, my friend. Yes, it can be used as an audio interface, and arguably should be. Gosh darn it. Griffin Gaines, the pizza's strong with you today, huh? All righty. Paul Richard, good morning. Long time no speak, my friend. Nice to see everybody saying hello. Griffin, great to see you. Stephen Radar. A little radar for you in the morning here, my friend. I'm going to take this little overshirt off here. And gosh darn it, Raphael, hang on a second. I'll get to you in just a second, my dear friend. Little morning greeting. Gosh darn it. So it's been a very interesting night. First of all, hello. You with the Mexican cocoa. Love that. Jimmy, I owe your email a little attention. I have been a little busy. I look forward to seeing that update you sent me. And more importantly, hearing it, my friend. Great to see you. All right, ladies and gentlemen. I've actually been up all night shooting Line 6 Helix Stadium video. So it's been a very interesting journey. You know, you never quite know how long or how short something's going to take. But I'm pretty darn excited about put the guns away. Pretty darn excited. And on Wednesday, I was down in Los Angeles, and now I can kind of talk about the journey. I got a chance to, first of all, celebrate Line 6's 10th anniversary of Helix. It's amazing to think that Helix has been out for 10 years. Thank you, my friend. Well, I appreciate the grace. And so what dropped is Helix Stadium. I don't have one here, but I did get a chance to play one in Los Angeles. Spent a bunch of time with the team there and just was preparing to do a completely different video, but I kind of got back and decided to do one kind of answering the 3 most common questions I think people would want to know about it, and then 5 key things that I think in terms of the feature set are pretty amazing, and y'all can watch that video, but it's really rather amazing. Hello, Eric. How you doing, oh, wait. There's Eric 1. And then there is the other Eric. Good morning, my friend. You know, it's funny. I don't know when I started doing kind of the musical salutation, but it's kind of one of my favorite things about Saturday morning. I don't know where it came from, but it ain't going nowhere anytime soon. All right. Awesome. I didn't know I had much in common with the band Slaughter, but I'll take that, my friend. Well, we both kind of had puffy hair, so I guess there's that. All right, well, first and foremost, let's take a quick moment and do the obvious. It is time to raise them up because, ladies and gentlemen, if it weren't for caffeine, last night would have been a different outcome. I want to thank you for stopping by in case we haven't met and you're kind of hanging out, lurking in the background. My name is Doug. This is Doppler's Gear Garage, and every Saturday morning we get together and do this. Now, next Saturday may be a little strange. I think I'm going to try and do this from a hotel. So I've got my dear friend GA is in town from China, and he is a dear friend. And so Melissa and I and GA and his wife Shen, we're going to go see Metallica on Friday and on Sunday. And I've got to kind of figure out how I'm going to deal with the live stream on Saturday. So that has yet to be determined. Hopefully the hotel will have enough throughput for me to be able to do that. Or maybe I'm just going to do it from my phone, but we'll figure it out as a hotspot. But in case there's weird technical stuff, I'm warning you in advance. All right. So let me know down in the chat, first of all, where it is that you're coming from, what it is that you might be raising up. I am, as somebody pointed out earlier, I think that was Griffin, I'm sipping up the pizza. And I will turn this around and face this to you. Good morning. So glad to be here. It's been a really long week, but a really great long week. Albert, what's happening, my man? Yes, thankfully. So the crazy thing is I use two applications to live stream, just since you kind of mentioned it. One is Ecamm Live, and then Ecamm Live traditionally does a handshake with Restream. But last weekend, and it's like this in the streaming world, you just kind of hit stream, and I go over to Facebook, and there's a lock that every time you go to Facebook, it always asks you to kind of unlock it and take the stream from private to public. But I couldn't unlock the stream. It was the strangest thing. Not until the stream was over, which is even weirder. So I did a couple of tests early in the week, and finally I just kind of went, okay, I'm going to have to learn how to go live from within Ecamm Live, which is what I did this morning. But it's still a little new, so I was a little tiny bit late getting on this morning, so my apologies. In any case, we figured out Facebook and YouTube multi-streaming from Ecamm Live, which I'm very happy about. Albert, just want to say thanks for hanging out last Saturday. As I think a bunch of you know, I had a gig last Saturday night. And so it's an interesting thing because it ties into this whole... now I can kind of talk about some of this Helix Stadium stuff. So first of all, let me just take a quick scroll here and... Mauricio... thank you very much. We are in the San Francisco Bay Area, which is away from the Los Angeles riots. And in San Francisco, they're kind of making some noise as well. But we're further inland by about 40 miles. But I really appreciate that. Yeah, it's been kind of a strange time. So let me just kind of catch up here real quick. So Albert... was able to kind of hang out last Saturday night, and so it's one of those gigs. It's a kind of a bar thing, and they absolutely love guitar there. It was a benefit for a guy named George Cole, who's a guitar player from the San Francisco Bay Area, brilliant player, and he's going through a thing with leukemia. It's a serious deal. So we did this benefit, and included some giveaway guitars, including some stuff signed by one of. Or two of his students, Billy Joe and Mike Dirnt from Green Day, as well as the drummer whose name I'm going to forget. In any case, it was a great night, but Albert was a huge help because I managed to show up with way more gear than one human being should use, which is kind of the whole point. But I was playing with tracks, which is on smaller dates like that is kind of what I have to do. And as it relates to this whole thing, Chris asked this question here. The upload stems. So the stems, in terms of Helix Stadium, is a new thing that is going to be rolled out. I don't know if it's going to be in the very first version of the firmware 0.0 or whatever it's going to be, maybe 0.1. But if it's not, it will be coming soon. And so basically what this is it's within Helix, and it's called Stadium. And for those of us that love to jam with things on YouTube or on Spotify or on Apple Music, first of all, you can take those things and you can bring just the 2-track stems in there, or you can use something like Moises.ai. That's one of the services that I subscribe to that will stem stuff out. But basically, Yamaha has in its array of offerings has a stemming software that they're going to integrate with Helix Stadium, and it's going to allow you to stem the things out. So for those of us that would kind of like to go, hey, I want to play along with, I don't know, Leonard Skinner, but let me get the other guitars out. Let me play there. You can do that. And then there's all these other cool functions, like it'll change presets based on markers you place in the song that are called flags. You can also set basically time markers so you can loop sections. So I have been spending a lot of time playing with these tracks, and touring with it, because that is how kind of guitar players like myself can afford to go out and tour Europe and the United States. Europe opening for Gilby Clarke, United States opening for Michael Schenker, because there just wasn't the budget to bring a band. I would always prefer to use a band, but sometimes you got to roll with what you got to roll with. And there's limitations, for those of you that are kind of, am I going to say rolling your own tunes? I guess I am, because that could be like a cigar or tobacco as opposed to that crazy California stuff. In any case, the idea is the ability to kind of change the arrangement on the fly, or just hang out and work on tones as you're kind of playing along with your own tracks, or work on delays and reverbs. You know, that whole sound design thing is a contextual thing, because guitars sound very different, quote unquote, naked on their own than they do in the framework of a track. And ditto with kind of finding your feel. You know, if I were to on my own, it's going to sound very different once you start adding drums and bass, and you have certain frequencies that kind of the guitar and the bass can mask each other on, and you know, cymbals do their own little thing. So finding that little hole where the guitar lives, such that when all the other stuff starts playing, it doesn't get masked by that stuff and kind of disappear back there, it's really important. So this really offers some really powerful ways to work around all of that stuff. Matt, still going to rock Helix OG, but really really stoked for Stadium. Heard you were shredding up the anniversary party. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Thanks for hanging out here. It was kind of a crazy, really fun thing. You know, Los Angeles is a trip. So, you know, I'm here kind of nested, if you will, in the San Francisco Bay Area. And it's always interesting to kind of transplant my musical stuff that more or less lives in this garage in a Bay Area suburb to go back down to Los Angeles and just kind of, you know, experience the city. It's a very hard city. There's a lot of people just kind of clawing their way to the top. The great thing about the event is people were super chill. I don't know how many of you know who Sean Hurley is, but like I'm kind of sitting there eating. They had this great, you know, Mexican food for lunch, and I'm there with my tacos, and I'm there with Perfecto de Castro. We're having a great conversation. Barry Cleveland. I look over and I'm like, oh my word. That's Sean Hurley, who spent a lot of time playing with John Mayer and basically is the modern Paul McCartney. It's a really great way to describe Vertical Horizon, right? And, you know, he's really awesome. So it was, you know, and of course I just kind of left him in his space. I met him once a long time ago at a Bass Player Live event, but he's just a brilliant musician. But, you know, the vibe at the event was so chill. And, you know, for those of you that haven't necessarily spent time in the Line 6 universe, every brand kind of has its own personality, and you know, a lot of players, you know, for example, Eric, when playing to the tracks, will the playing to the tracks have, you know, have the capability to change the sound on its own while tracks are running? So I don't know if it's going to be in the very first version of the firmware. I think it's not going to be until a little bit later, but I have a kind of follow-up thing with Eric Klein, the chief product architect, probably this week, and if not this week, next week. And that's going to be, you know, kind of checking in on some of the very specifics around these dates, because there is just a ton of information that's rattling around my brain. And so the thing is that ability to do that is one of the centerpieces, and arguably for myself, arguably the most important thing it brings, other than the fact that they now have with Agora, the new modeling technology, really taken that next level. And as I mentioned in the video that I did earlier, and one of the places that modeling does its best is usually when your volume control the volume's all the way up, and there's less dynamic range because everything's kind of loud, and there's more compression when you've got distortion. But when you back off to that area, kind of 0 to kind of 3.5, now the amp that I'm playing through is 20 plus years old, so that if I kind of backed off that much on a tube amp, it would get that, well, it would sound more like this. Let's see if I can get there like this. There you go. So this setting here would sound a little bit more like, and you'd hear kind of the C's part a little bit. And you lose some of the low end, it would just clean up a little bit more. But that's one of the things that Stadium does so incredibly well. And we were kind of A-Bing back and forth between the original Helix OG model of the Bogner Ecstasy on the red channel and then the new Agora model. I was like, wow, it was really kind of one of those things you're like, that's... And, you know, first of all, Albert, you know, a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about kind of that whole playing with the fingers thing. And the great thing about playing with your fingers, we're kind of using, you know, kind of a hybrid thing. But that kind of... See, I haven't played slide for a couple of days, but I'll give it a whirl. So with the fingers, you can kind of get that. And if that's your thing, having it clean up a little bit more when you bring the volume back. And you get those Becky tones, but you still got enough. And on a tube amp, it'll probably shave off, depending on the amp and the setting, a little bit more of the hair around there. But, you know, considering this amp is 20 years old, and gosh darn it, it's been with me for a long time, served me really well. Beautiful piece of technology. So to answer your question again, or to reiterate, I don't know if that's going to roll out in version 1 of the firmware, but it's a centerpiece of what this is about. It is the ability to bring in a track or stems, set markers for loop points, or non-linear jumping inside it, so you can basically change the arrangement on the fly. For those of you that have an interest in whether it's just on your own and you're writing material, one of the things is when you're working in a traditional DAW, it's generally pretty hard to kind of get commands associated with marker points. But inside a looper and then inside Helix Stadium, the ability to set markers that you can associate with your feet, or kind of have it play in a linear fashion, and or control with your feet, and or have certain sections just kind of loop on their own, it enables you, let's just say I've got a... You've got that looping at the beginning of your song. One of the hardest things to do when using a looper is kind of changing the form and kind of getting a vibe going, because things have a tendency that started, it ended. And so by creating little sections that loop, you can kind of sit on something. And so being able to have that flexibility, and one of the things I also mentioned in the video is that I think it's the evolution of content creation, because it's an interesting thing. Those of us that write our own material, most of us are putting up some sort of video online, but the ability to play through a timeline and then have the presets change right away, so you can be focusing on playing the parts instead of like, oh, I got to move my foot and I got to do this thing, and now it's at this part of the arrangement, I got to get to this part of the neck and I got to do this pickup selection. All that stuff can kind of throw you out of your vibe, because it can. So having that kind of happening in the background is really cool. Everyone fine up to the coffee. Nick, oh, look at that guitar. I love that. So I get to tell my sad story. So one of my favorite things is we get to tell some stories here. Years ago, I walked into Real Guitars in San Francisco, and they had a Charvel Star guitar, which is basically that body design is what they would call that. Original maple neck, Strat style headstock, old Charvel logo. I could have bought it for $1,500, and I walked out of there, and like 5 days later, I was like, I should pick this up. Gone. And it's just one of those things. You're like, oh man. So in any case, sad story. Chad Boston, hey. How are you doing, my friend? So Chad Boston, let's take a moment and let's raise him up for Chad. So for those of you in the Helix community, you would know that Chad and his dear friend Chris Saraga have done so much to build the Helix community. And, here's the thing is I am very thankful. Hey, Raz, what's going on, my man? Gilberto, good morning. Mike Rand, hello. Shredding Finn, good morning. Let me get count up here. Shane Wise, hello. Rick Harrison, hello. Carlos Hernandez. Ed May, oh my word, holy cow. And Kevin Wayne Carr, hello, my friend. All right, so getting back to the Focus Fox. So Chad and Chris have done so much to nurture the Line 6 community. I'm so thankful. So I kind of started to say here, there's kind of this organic kind of guitar community that I have the privilege of being part of here. Chris and Chad have put together this. Is it at 50,000 yet, or it's just at the verge of 50,000? This Facebook group that says, we got even more. Hello, Steve. What's happening, my bass playing and guitar playing friend? And Dr. Phil, great to see you. Look at you with the. Is that an umlaut or a ganglo or whatever it is? Good morning, my dear friend. But what they've done is they've nurtured this community about, the various updates and different things, and have really, so at this Line 6 event on Wednesday, it was really lovely that, hey, Chad, are you still with us, by the way? And are you okay if I talk about, kind of what they kind of did to honor you guys? I know that, first of all, you may be keeping that under the radar for right now, or that may just be kind of like a kind of a private thing. So let me know in the chat. So in any case, they did something really special to honor those guys. And so the Line 6 folks, I started to say this before, there is a very unique community around the Line 6 gear that everybody is really chill. And the people at the company are great. So if, you're kind of a Line 6 fanatic and or just even casual user, I think I always like to know, if somebody's gear, I'm using it, if they're kind of a D-bag, it always changes the way I feel about the gear. And if they're really cool, I love that. And I think it's one of the really great things about it. So in any case, Chad and Chris have done so much to nurture that community side of it. So in any case, let me talk about how I can nurture this community this morning with the guitar in my hands. And I'm going to keep my eye on the chat. First of all, it's so great to see so many of my Bay Area friends. Okay, let me just take a look at this. Okay. That is the answer I was looking for. Great, great, great. I started doing that more after I learned how to play Hoffer Teacher correctly and the spaky tone it produces. I love that. Okay, good, good, good. Mike Rand, always a pleasure. I was giving greetings before. And Gilberto, you're too kind. So, I have a guitar with a stereo jack for the PAs on the bridge. Do you know if Stadium will have the ability to split the inputs into separate snapshots, or does OG Helix have hidden features? That's a great question. All right. So, for Helix Stadium XL, the big boy, you have 2 quarter-inch inputs. And that means you can use your 2 outputs on maybe your PRS and run them into their own signal chain, and basically then you can treat each one of those separately and then sum them at the outputs. So, or you can potentially route them to different outputs as well. So the answer is yes, 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 and yes. Good morning, Rick. How are you, my friend? All right. The release date's on. So I manage in my video Cringe. I got the release dates flipped around for XL, the big boy, and just regular Stadium floor. Stadium XL floor. It's got the expression pedal. Comes out in the fall. And just regular smaller Stadium comes out in the end of the year, kind of quote-unquote winter 2025, towards the end of the year. So those are the dates, and gosh darn it, Henry Velasquez, what's going on? How are you doing? Holy cow, look at all of that. Okay, hang on a second. I need to read all this. Morning, Doug. I'm very excited for the Helix Stadium. I think Helix Stadium will be great for me, only because it will be more compact with the same power as regular here. It is smaller. Plus, I can use my own type of expression pedal with it, and I can either move it to left or the right. Thank you very much. So that's an interesting thing, because I am a trained right foot expression and wah-wah pedal person. I think most people are, but if you're using the built-in expression to Helix and Helix Stadium XL floor, the built-in expression pedals on the right-hand side, you don't really have a choice unless you add a second one on the other side. So that is something important to think about. So that's a really cool point. You can move it to the left or to the right. With Helix Stadium, I could totally do without the scribble strips, because I like the screen, especially with the graphic GPU. It would do great for anybody who wants a screen that is going to show perfect image of anything. Well, absolutely true. I think my only problem for right now is I'm probably going to finance, as I do not have Helix finance. The problem now is finance, as in I do not have Helix floor, and I also got a couple of pedals. But I may have to sell those in order to put in type of pre-order for the Helix Stadium. Especially when you're living in a tough financial debt or moment, as you can say. I feel you, and so here's the thing: is that this is, and I will say this. There are lots of times that we get excited about a piece of gear, and buying it at the right time when it's not a financial strain is important. And so I feel you. The other thing is that there are a couple of different options these days, like Sweetwater, depending on what your situation is, credit history, so on and so forth. They frequently will run something 36 months, same as cash. But the thing is, if you're not careful, that debt can accumulate. If you ever use something like that, please make sure never to miss your payment dates. Because if you miss enough of them, and sometimes with some outfits it's like 1 or 2, what ends up happening is you pay all this accumulated interest, and it is a bad thing. So I think it's really important. And yes, Business 101, be nice. So in any case, Henry, congratulations. And I love that, again, that the whole thing, I'm such a right foot expression pedal person thing. And I love that take on that. So well put. Thank you for that. That's excellent input. Stars Guitars back in the day helped me route and paint that body. It's still rocking 40 years later with a few updates. Custom graphics by Nick F. Oh, this is Nick. Got it. Oh, right. There we go. So, how do I pronounce it? Ferrari. It's now Ferrari. Got it. So, for those of you who don't know, in the San Francisco Bay Area, What South of Market Street was Stars Guitars on? In any case, they were south of Market, and that was where the modularized graphite people were, and I think some of the alembic stuff was done there. But it was kind of a guitar hub here in the Bay Area that doesn't exist anymore. Wait a second. How did I miss it? Hold on a second. Dr. Phil has a birthday on Sunday. How did I miss this? My apology. Uh-oh. Happy birthday, my friend. So your birthday is on Father's Day. How cool is that? Melissa, thank you for catching that. I kind of managed to miss that as I was scrolling through. Yes, and Melissa's out of her sling. She's no longer slung up with that broken shoulder. All right. I don't know that song per se. However, I know Joey a little bit, and he is a lovely guy. So I will give that a whirl. I can't. Hold on. Let's see if I can. Oh, there we go. Copy text. Okay, let me just grab that. And while I'm doing that, reminds me it's probably a good time. New note. Thank you very much. Come on. There we go. Awesome. Thank you, Mauricio. I look forward to checking that out. One of the things that I've been toying with is the idea of doing something called Analyze This. And the concept is as follows. You know, let's say, for example, so that's kind of a traditional 6-5-4 progression. And for those of you who don't speak 6-5-4, if you took the major scale, as in G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. And if you took that G note and just kind of instead of going G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, you went G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. And you started at the A note and went A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, and B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B. And you took the first, third, and fifth notes of each of those scales, which are, by the way, the modes, G major, A Dorian, B Phrygian, C Lydian, D mixed Lydian, E minor, F sharp, Locrian, and G major. You would have a G major, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, E minor, F sharp diminished, and a G major triad. And if you were to take that 6 chord, 5 chord, and 4 chord, that is to say the 1, 3, 5 started off the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th degree, and the 1, 3, 5, actually I should say the 1 flat 3, 5 started off the 6th degree, and the 1, 3, 5 started off the 5th degree, and the 1, 3, 5 started off the 4th degree. That's a pretty common 6-5-4 movement, and it allows us to go, okay, well, if we know that major is based off the 1st degree, and Dorian is off the 2nd degree, and Phrygian is off the 3rd degree, and Lydian is off the 4th degree, and mixed Lydian is off the 5th degree, minor is off the 6th degree, and our chord progression is based around the 6th chord. That means we're, in this case, in the key of A, A minor. And so that framework of those triads is actually really fundamental to being able to kind of unlock so many chord progressions, because the majority of the progressions we play actually come right out of that triad framework. That is on a DVD that I did called Diatonic Theory and Harmony, but it's also in a book that Mr. Steve Vai did called Videology. And so the thing about that, first of all, hang on a second, let me just take a moment. Craig Parker, I like that photo, my man. Hello, hello, hello. So in Videology, Mr. Vai talks about those triads as chord scales. And the idea is if we were taking the G major scale, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, and started off, instead of its G note, we started off its B note, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, and started off its D note, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, you get the G, B, D, A, C, E, B, D, F sharp, C, E, G, D, F sharp, A, E, G, B, F sharp, A, C, G, B, D there. And that's how you map the major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished, major off of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. And that's how we got that 6, 5, 4 movement. So that allows us to associate the chord movement and the relative bass note. And when you determine which one of those is the tonal center, whatever number that's functioning, 1 through 7, becomes your tonal center. And whatever, for example, the 6 is your tonal center, then you're in the key of fill in the blank root note minor. So for some folks, so first of all, this is pretty funny. With great pleasure, Phil. Hang on, I'm going to have to get down here in just a second. Adopt and overcome, keep it simple. All right. Sean, what's going on, my friend? Great to see you. Hello, hello. Thanks for joining us. And Phil, with great pleasure. So YouTube, so this is the thing about Chat GPT. There we go. You know, don't always believe it or Google, but you are YouTube's sexiest guitar player, or guitarist. So there you go. It led me to my own page. I love that. Thanks so much for stopping by, and thanks for watching the video earlier. I really appreciate it. Kind of getting caught up over there on the chat. All right. So one of the things I want to talk to y'all about today, I'm in the middle of kind of working on this Pentatonic course, and I've been doing all this really wacky charting of that. So I'm going to presume that there's some Pentatonic fans in the house. So I'm going to give you an exercise that I call corners. I could also choose to call it snake eyes, but this exercise is just wacky. But here's the deal, is that, say we're in A minor pentatonic. That is to say, we're in some type of minor key just today, and we're just going to vamp on that guy. So one of the things about this is it's a great key to be able to go, all right, A, C, C, A, D, G, E, E, G, D, A, C, C, A, D, G, E, E, G, D, A, C, C, A. And then you can flip it around. C, A, C, G, D, E, E, D, G, C, A, C, G, D, E, E, D, G, C, A, C. Now, the first time you do it, it will feel like your head's about to fall off and your brain's about to explode, and all the blood is about to drain out of your body from boiling over, because you're kind of working in opposite directions. It's contrapuntal motion. That is to say, one thing's going up and the other thing is going down. Kind of like some of my strings are a little bit higher than the others are supposed to be, which means I'm contrapuntally out of tune, which we can fix. But the thing about that is, if you can kind of go, you know, in those corners like that and work through the notes of the key, it really kind of allows you to get centered. Come on, there you go. The culprits appear. On the notes being A, C, D, E, G, A, C, D, E, E, G, A, C. And the thing about this is that if we can kind of get used to seeing this first box right there, every place we got ourselves an A. That you can play. That kind of needed to be about there, and I can't get to the C note there. No C note today. So the point being is it allows you to use the neck in a very different way. And so I've been kind of working on this with some of my students. So this is where this becomes really valuable. So let's say we're going to talk about this region of the guitar neck. When I'm wanting to do something that's really vocal, that region of the neck, holy cow, we got more. This is one of the areas that I go to. But let's say I'm down here. Where it's a little, in a good way, a little bit pokey, where this area. The thing about this area is that's kind of home base, so we're going to do a lot of the kind of the traditional things we do. But being able to kind of go, hey, I want to be up here at this register. And so this little shape right here, starting off of the E, is basically kind of a double minor third. That is, say, this interval right here, that 3 fret thing, and this guy, that's a double minor third starting off the 5, flat 7, 1, flat 3 of the 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7, 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7, 1, flat 3, and that is going to be an E, G, A, C. So if we're aiming for E, we can find all the, and if we know we're going E, G, A, C, there's our A. And that just means you can plug in and really work the different registers of the instrument. And this is one of the things that I think we all suffer from, is we play the same licks in the same places over and over. And after a while, the law of diminishing returns kind of creeps in, and we just kind of, well, keep playing the same licks in the same places over and over. So, you know, again, one of the most important things is being able to kind of go, all right, well, let me find how I'm going to milk this register. And again, this little area. And so the moral of the story is, by kind of taking those shapes and recognizing what notes they're at as well, means you can begin to cut and paste them and use them at very specific registers to create. And the cool thing is like, if you listen to what register that is right there, that's literally the same octave, but playing it in this register of the guitar. And this one up here, totally different character. So I encourage you to experiment with that. All right, hang on a second. Let me catch up, Henry. I love this. Hang on a second. You're absolutely right for once. The one thing, my question about the Helix Stadium will be probably regarding the left side of the 2-foot switches. As I can remember from the past, from Helix LT, is that the left side 2 switches were never able to convert to stop mode switches. And the one thing about Helix Stadium is that will those left side 2 switches be able to convert to stop mode foot switches now? Okay, so here is the one thing that you may not know, and I didn't cover in this video because there were just like, there were so many things. I'm like, okay, these are the things that I think I'm going to cherry pick on. There is now an additional bank of 8 primary foot switches that you can get to. So that is to say there's kind of an A and a B bank. So you now have twice as many foot switches. And so it means that you can, in Command Center, you should be able to program at least one of those 2 banks to do exactly what you want to do at whatever FS location that you need to get to. Now, here's the thing. Let me just admit what I do with Helix and, hopefully sooner than later on Helix Stadium. Like everyone, I kind of have a workflow, and I have a tendency to, if it's working, I don't really mess with it that much. So my Helix use case scenario, it's kind of funny here. The worship tutorial guys are really lovely guys, and they're great friends of mine. And the Helix rack here was the day that Eddie Van Halen died. It's a crazy story. So just before that, Joe Satriani invited me to kind of be one of the guest contributors for his stripped ×3 kind of backing track release, and a bunch of amazing guitar players that were on that. And so I kind of went, well, I wonder if I Could Fly is available, and it was, which is just like such a beautiful song. It's like, can I do that? Because it was on the quote unquote on the list. And he was like, yeah, nobody else is claiming it. I was like, yes. So I basically used a Worship Tutorials patch. I stacked like 3 drives on at the same time. But the only thing I really changed about it was doing the dotted eighth and a quarter note, because that's kind of one of my main jams. Dotted eighth on the left, quarter note on the right. Dotted eighth on the left, quarter note on the right. And I literally finished shooting that little thing, and then I got an email or a text from the publisher at Worship Musicians just saying, did you hear Eddie Van Halen died? And of course, I just immediately burst into, it's kind of like, the generation before us, where were you when Kennedy was killed? And it's like, for me, where was I when Eddie died? I was just like, I was sitting right in this room, and I won't say I lost it, but it just like, it affected me in a way that very few of the rock star deaths have affected me, because he was one of my really huge guitar heroes, right? And had I heard about that before I went to do that, I wouldn't have been able to play the track. And so, so that, it would be inappropriate for me to reveal, kind of the interaction, other than to say, I sent it off to Joe, and we had a very interesting conversation, because, it was kind of all on the day that Eddie died. And needless to say, Eddie was a big deal in my world, and obviously in Joe's world. So it was a very kind of this very intense kind of shared experience around guitar. But that was done using Helix rack and Helix floor. And I didn't put this in the video because I was like, it's just a little much. But the first time I ever used Helix, literally was playing at one of Joe's camps with Phil Collin from Def Leppard playing Hysteria, and Paul Gilbert's playing rhythm guitar. So I was using that for the kind of that beautiful chimey, jangly chorus thing. But I also kind of did the co-lead with Phil. Kind of one of the things in the back of my mind, always like, what if I could be in Def Leppard? And for one song, I got as close as I will probably ever get, and that was that little box got checked. But the thing is that, Helix for me represents 2 very pinnacle moments for me as a player, where both in a studio / content creation POV, because, with the If I Could Fly thing, that was shot with, I had 3 cameras running. But in that other thing, it was actually, getting a chance to take one of my favorite Def Leppard songs and actually play it with Phil Collin, who, by the way, can sing like a bird. And, so that whole experience for me has been very special. But I have a tendency to just kind of rinse and repeat. So once I've got a sound up, I kind of keep it there. So, when I play on Sunday mornings, I just take the same Worship Tutorials patch, and I just turn different drives on and off. I don't beat sync the delays. I got some delay and reverb going, just enough to create some ambience. I do some swells here and there with the expression pedal, but I don't do a lot of extra assignment. But however, for those that do, like you, Henry, it's actually, a really important thing that you have the ability to assign whatever you want, wherever you want it. So your workflow is able to really kind of be custom tailored. And that is one of the things about Helix through Command Center, that you can do a lot of customization. And I would not be surprised if any of the things that you want to do is switching which side of the unit are kind of your main lead controllers that you can swap those behaviors. I should know that, and I don't. But as I recall, you can change the behavior of any of those encoders to do what you want it to do, also known as a foot switch, right? But one of the great things about Helix, in case you don't know, is these touch capacitive, I think is the thing. You touch it, and whatever effect is assigned to that foot switch, if you're in stop box mode, that on the screen kind of lights up so you can get into deep editing mode, and then in turn you can step into edit mode with the rightmost foot switch, and then you can do you can edit parameters with your feet, which is pretty amazing. I mean, Eric Klein, the chief product architect at Line 6, besides being an exceptionally nice guy, he's brilliant, and he just kind of geeks out on this stuff. It's very special. All right. Also, what would be really cool would with the tap tempo foot switch on the Helix Stadium be able to use other than a tap tempo as an additional stomp mode foot switch. I'm really hoping that Line 6 will realize will release more information regardless of what I'm talking about, because if we do, that would be huge. Plus, especially with this brand new system, I think in terms of what people want more flexibility, that kind of similar to Fractal Audio FM9 or the flexibility of their foot switch. So the great thing is that I'm in touch with a bunch of those people. So I will find out some of that stuff. There may be some of the stuff because I'm under an NDA that I won't be able to talk about right away. But Line 6 is a company that I would say, in a good sense of the word, prides itself on having their ear to what customers want and customers need. And the thing is that you brought up a really good point. My buddy Ed May was on here a little bit earlier. Chris Lewis, hello, my dear friend. Hang on a second. I'm a fractal man. What's going on, Chris? I thought you were a boogeyman. Great to see you, Chris. How are you, my friend? Line 6 Pod HD Pro and delay units, the green one, are still the best pure effects units. Those are very, very cool. Yes. So yes, and yes. Chris Lewis. Okay, hang on. I got to do. Hold on, just a second. Let me catch up here. Yeah, knowing where your root note and chord tones are is huge. Helps me from starting a solo one fret off in the heat of the moment. And this is one of the things I'm gonna kind of rabbit trail on that for just a moment, and then I will give proper salutation to all those good people. Good morning, everybody. So here's the thing is that so let's take B flat, right? So if you think about us guitar players, we will generally, given our druthers, if we're gonna hey, you know what, we kind of ended up here, oh, let me move to here or here because they're friendlier keys. But the thing about different registers, it's not just a half step lower, it's that little bit tighter. You can hear the extra bit of sagginess in the string. And I move up a half step. It's actually really nice. That's B there. But B flat. So one of the things is I'm kind of mapping all this pentatonic stuff is that some of the wacky, crazy exercises are really designed to help players, because many of us, we look at the pentatonic, we're taught it, written a box shape, little circle or red dot on the bottom note, and go, there you go, see you next week. Now the great thing, like bar chords and pretty much any chord that you might play on the guitar, you don't have to know that's A, G sharp, C sharp, and E to actually play that A major 7. You don't have to know that's 1 7 3 5. to play an A major 7. You can still know it's an A major 7 and not know anything other than the shape of that, which is something you celebrate. And the thing with the pentatonic, however, when you land at a place like B flat and everything, is kind of, it's at the dots or the little headstock inlays are in the wrong location. That's where the note names can really become a huge help. And then you also then begin to go, hey, all right, well, if this is B flat, D flat, E flat, F, A flat, B flat, D flat, F. That B flat, D flat, F. Becomes the ability. Gonna hit into a little Dorian. Little minor. Frigid. Back to my B flat, D flat, F, B flat, D flat, F, B flat, D flat, F, B flat. And although the frets are kind of all in the wrong place, if I can focus on the B flat, D flat, and F, then I kind of have it figured out. So the interesting thing, though, is for most of us who kind of learn, as you kind of pointed out about the note names, we don't have a tendency to go back to the minor pentatonic and think about the minor pentatonic that way. It's a really interesting, because if you think about the trajectory of a guitar player, we start off with the shapes of the pentatonic, we start off with the shapes of the chords, and as we learn, all right, major scale's got 7 notes. If you start off with each of the 7 degrees, that's where the modes come from. If you take the first, third, and fifth tones for each of the modes, that's where the chords come from. The diatonic triad chords, major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished major, G, B, D, A, C, B, D, F sharp, C, G, D, F sharp, A, E, G, B, C, E, G, B, F sharp, A, C, G, B, D, right? Those triad note groups. And then you kind of begin to be able to navigate the neck using that information. But we don't bring that information back to the pentatonic, which is like kind of weird. So some of these wacky exercises that I'm working on, and they are really my favorite thing to do as I'm falling asleep. Instead of counting sheep, I count pentatonic notes as I go backwards and forwards in one octave. And I do it in the 5 keys that this course is going to be in: E, G, A. And Chris, if you're still here, I switched from C to B and then D and E. So, but the point being is it really kind of gets you used to having 5 keys that really command the range of the neck, and in addition to mapping all 5 patterns for each of those keys, really getting comfortable with the intervallic relationships, as in minor third, major second, minor third, major second. Because if you can get used to training your ear and your brain to recognize, right, minor third, major second, that other major second, and that minor third to that major second right there, and in turn being able to kind of recognize, hey, that minor third is the minor third between the 1 and the flat 3. And if we're at A, that's going to be A and C. So kind of stacking those things, and sometimes I refer to things like a clothesline, a circular clothesline. Those of you that don't do laundry in a traditional dryer, or came from places where had families that you went and visited, family members that you'd like, round clothesline, wow. You kind of look at that, it's like, what is that? I kind of grew up in the East Bay here, San Francisco, so a circular clothesline wasn't something that I saw until I went and visited my family in Michigan, where they put everything out on the line. Not in winter, of course, but the point being is that I kind of think of it as kind of stacking multiple sheets of kind of information at each one of these places. So that's the one. You can think of it, I should say, you could think of this guy as your flat 3. You can think of it as a C. You can think of that intervallic relationship as a minor third. So you begin to have this awareness of all the things that are happening, because then we begin to use those tools interchangeably. Because if we think about, and my student Gabriel, little genius, quite often there's a thing called the Socratic method, where you ask questions, and sometimes you just kind of ask a question going, I wonder how they're going to say it. And so we were doing one of those kind of crazy note exercises. And I said, why is it important, to not just do the notes, down at the bottom neck, but also at the top of the neck? And just off the top of his head, he said, well, the bottom 2 strings is where we place the chords. So those are the strings that we really know the notes well. And the top of the neck, we have a tendency to play shapes. And I was like, ooh, the teacher is the student and the student is the teacher. I was like, wow. And, he's 15. I was like, holy cow, this kid. There's something that I love to refer to as guitar intelligence. And that, the way he just kind of just it rolled off of his tongue without thinking about it. But it really articulates so much of our guitar experience, because when we are up at the top of the neck, and God forbid in B flat, like all the dots or the little headstocks are at the wrong location. You're like, danger, Will Robinson, as opposed to like, hey, you know what? There's my B flat. All right, there's my D flat, and I guess that's going to be my F. And that's my 5, 1, flat 3, 1, and my flat 7 to my 1. And that double minor third that's going to happen off the F note. And all of a sudden you're able to take a wacky key and turn it into something. And the thing about those minor thirds, one of them is going to be the 5 and the flat 7, and the other is going to be the 1 and the flat 3. B flat all of a sudden becomes really kind of tameable, because you kind of use you're rooting around. All right. Okay. Chris, how are you, my friend? I miss you dearly. Look at that photo. I love that. Wally, what's happening? I am having fun. How the heck are you doing? Long time. Hey. Thanks for joining us. Awesome. Hello. Shredding Finn. I make a simple patcher song with BPM. At least I don't have to tap tempos from song to song. So, this is one of the interesting things is like, I had a long conversation with John Coonabearty, producer of Surfing with the Alien. He's the guy that's mixing the songs in my instrumental album and my vocal album. And one of the things that he kind of mentioned is they have a tendency, when he works with Joe, to not beat sync the delays. Why? Because if the drummer moves a little bit in the time, by the way, a great drummer, and I learned this from Atma, each different section of the song will have a slightly different lean. Such that as you set up for example, you set up the verse, you pull the time back a little bit. That is to say, if this is the click and this is the snare, you adjust how far back that snare is on 2 and 4, or I should say a little bit after 2 and 4, for each section of the song. So it's got a slightly different lean for each section, and when you kind of go to the top of the verse, you lean back, you take that breath, not only bring the dynamics down, but you have what I call time dynamics. And it's so funny, at one point I was going to hire this drummer in Los Angeles, and I said, okay, I need you to do this in this section, do that section. He just kind of looked at me, he's like, oh, well, that's hard. And I was like, yeah, this cash is hard cash. And I all but sent him home, because I'm like, okay, got it. It's too hard. You're not going to work that hard for the money. I will never work with you or hire you again. Bye. And it's not like I have that kind of, oh, you didn't do what I want to do. It's like, hey, you're the drummer. You're supposed to be able to own your time. If I can do it as a guitar player, you as a drummer, that's your job. Your job is to look at the watch, not to see how long you've got until the end of the session you get paid, but look at the watch and look at the time and own the time. And in turn, have that command of your time so you can make each one of those sections have its own feel. Not everybody does it, but that's the special part about time. And that's what makes the Charlie Watts beautiful. And it doesn't mean that it all has to be on the click. It can organically speed up and slow down. But time is this beautiful thing where it can move. So getting back to the beat syncing thing, sometimes the drummer will place different pieces of the drum kit in slightly different places at the time. And you'll get some flamming between a beat sync delay and different pieces in the drum kit. And flamming in that nature where the delay. First of all, if you think about a guitar delay and the sound of a cymbal, not just the transient of the cymbal, but the cymbal kind of ringing in the room, all of a sudden they live enough of a similar area that if you think about delay and reverb, and you think about a cymbal attack, and then the reflection, which into reverb, which is a short delay, and then kind of dissipation of that, there's enough information that's similar enough to the guitar. If they're kind of out of sync with one another, it can be ugly. And so, somebody like John Coonaberry, his ear is very trained to that doesn't sound good because they're just not sitting perfectly together. So as an end result, one of the things that, they kind of have a tendency to do, the kind of magic numbers for a lot of people sit between 320 and 360 milliseconds. Back when my SDE 3000... is that the SRV 2000 or is it the SDE 3000 that's on the floor? What are you? This is the SDE 3000. Let's see if I can do this without dropping it. I've never dropped anything on the show. So this is my good old SDE 3000. And I can assure you if I fire this puppy up, there's a 99.9% probability that the patch that's going to load is going to be 360 milliseconds because it was just kind of that perfect delay time. Just kind of sat there, wasn't really in the way of anything. And so, in a house of worship, beat syncing is a big deal because, kind of like the Edge, some of these parts are very chicka, chicka, chicka. Not so much these days anymore, but it's still kind of one of those things where there are people that really like to have that beat syncing thing because it actually does create kind of an atmospheric thing. And if everybody's on the click and can play in time with the click, it can be a really groovy thing. All right, hang on a second. Patch per song. And so here's the other thing. And I see Rinky Dinky, hello. Rico B, what's going on? I love that photo, by the way. Eric, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Norman Smith, hello, hello. Oh, Miss Melissa Doppler. Jem, hey. Oh, thank you, my friend. You are a gem. How about that? Jose, what's going on, my man? Long time. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so here's the thing. I wanted to reply to... So the last gig, Albert, if you're still here. So last Saturday, I took... Oh, wrong. Here we go. No, it's over there in the head case. I took my JP2C, the JP2C. That's why I did it. It was there, but I moved it. Could have had a V8. But I was using the JP2C on the second channel. I was like, you know what? I don't need to do anything to this. So I literally did not bring a pedal board. I had the fractal running in the loop, dotted eighth on one side, quarter on the other, kind of, not beat synced anything in particular. Probably the quarters, probably pretty close to 360 milliseconds. Imagine that. And then some reverb, nothing too extreme. And by the way, if you're going to play in a really wide venue, which this wasn't, if you're using dotted eighth and quarter on the far extremes, bring them in a little bit so people have a little bit more of the wash in the center. If it's a really wide stage or really wide venue, really wide church building, whatever it is, bringing some of that stuff in. That's where things like Fractal and Helix, the panning functionality is a big deal. Just because you might have your guitars far left and far right, kind of what I like to do is hug the vocal, get everything out on the outside there, but I can bring some of those delays and the time-based stuff in a little bit closer to the center, and that way it's not quite like, hey, they're only hearing the quarter note. They're only hearing the dotted eighth, right? Or dotted eighth and quarter. I think I like to dotted eighth on the left and quarter on the right. But you bring it in a little bit and you get a little bit of the interplay, but it also makes it such that everybody gets a little bit of the spillover, if you will, between the two delay times mixing together. And it is a nice thing and just kind of adds a little bit more ambience to the whole setup. So getting back to your comment, Shredding Finn, there are people, for example, Larry Mitchell was in San Leandro or Hayward last night. I wasn't able to because I was shooting a video all night. And he's playing in Sacramento tonight, and I'm not going to be able to go see him. But Larry does a brilliant job of sound design for every one of his songs. And I'm like, I'm jealous in a good way. But on the other hand, last Saturday, I really loved the ideas like, I got the RC 600 looper, but I'm literally not bringing a pedal board. I didn't even hook the channel switcher up. I'm like, it's me, the guitar, the amp, a little bit of stuff in the background, and two 212 cabinets. Like, let me see what I can do in a slightly old school kind of way. You know, and again, that's where you're bringing the volume control down and doing all that kind of slightly old school stuff. But it has an organic sort of a thing that I really like, because, you know, I also enjoy, there are some things, you know, and again, that's kind of where this B flat philosophy, I was like, I actually enjoy working on the stuff that's hard, because then I get to work on the next batch of stuff that's hard. And, you know, it just kind of also allows you to kind of break down, well, if that was hard, and I kind of have broken that down, the next thing there, and the thing after that, and the thing after that, you develop a confidence of running towards the things that are difficult, as opposed to like keys like B flat away from them, because we have a tendency to avoid them because it can be a nasty key. And, you know, this is where, you know, the ability to have a methodology and a strategy for kind of going, hey, because the really interesting thing about working on this pentatonic course, which I'm madly passionate about, I think about it pretty much all day. And I'm running through the exercises while I walk around the local reservoir. And like I said, when I'm going to sleep, wake up in the middle of the night, wake up in the morning, it's like I'm fixated on it. And the idea of being able to toggle between the shapes, intervals, scale degree numbers, and note names is something that I'm making myself comfortable with. But for your average guitar player, it's not how we think about the minor pentatonic. But once you can unlock that, it's an exceptionally powerful tool, because you can just do all the musical things that understanding allows you to begin to apply. In any case, rinky dinky. I don't know why the build reverbs into the amps on the QC. Okay, hold on. Why don't the built into reverbs on the amps on the QC? I hate this. I'll get the Stadium and probably try the next Fractal at Live. Never had one. Okay, hold on. Why? Let me just make sure I'm getting this right, because I don't think I am. Morning, Doug. Hold on. The exclamation. Why don't the built-in reverbs into the amps on QC? So, okay. So this is one of the really interesting things. So we'll have a conversation about any of these platforms. There is a Bandmaster reverb over yonder, and it's basically the Stevie Ray tone. It's just nuts. But there is a thing about pretty much all the digital reverbs that are out there, that even if you dial up a spring reverb, it does not sound like a tube-driven spring reverb circuit. Gary Brower, the guy that works on my guitars and a bunch of other people in the Bay Area, has this beautiful black-face super reverb that is the perfect super reverb. Neil Sean's played through it. Joe Satriani's played through it. I don't know whether Kirk actually goes there, but probably Kirk Hammett's played through it. I mean, like, this amp, it's just perfect. And the reverb, it's funny things, I always go there and the reverb's off and I'm like, you know, it's like, oh, it's just magic. And that particular thing, the right reverb, is really, really important, especially if you're dealing with an amp where that reverb is kind of a quintessential part, and the pairing of that, right? And, you know, that's one of the other things I'm going to give my friends at UA a little bit of love. I'm going to mute the delay here real quick. But I think I should still have, I've got the EMT 140 up. So this is the reverb that was at Plant Studios. Just kind of has a nice, So it marries really well with pretty much any amp that I run into it. But it's one of the things about kind of synonymous, if you will, reverb pairings. And, you know, a spring reverb, if you're going to use a Fender-style spring reverb, it's just got to have that perfect thing, or else it actually takes away from the amp model. I still have yet to find a spring reverb that I kind of went, that's it, right? But maybe that's me, just being whiny. Rico, hello. I'm going to give you a little greeting here, my friend. Because that guitar, I love the zebra pickups on that, too. It's a nice register up there. All right. Come on, Stirs. I'm usually slow to migrate from older Line 6 unit to a newer one. First got into Line 6 with the Pod 2.0. Come on. I moved to the XT Live. Come on, OG, with the kind of little rings on the treadle there when it came out, and then stayed with that until the HD 500X, and then Helix. You are a rock star, my man. You know, the funny thing is that that old Line 6 gear still sounds great. Again, this amp, I've had this amp for 20 years, you know? See what the neck pickup's going to do. Yeah. Eric, great to see you, my friend. Again, I saw you when you came in, but hello again. Norman, very kind. Thank you so much. And with great pleasure. How you doing today? I love that photo, by the way. Look at that wall. Come on. The wall, the musical wall. I love that. The wall of sound. And yes, the language of music is a really special thing because, you know, it's an interesting thing. You know, again, kind of fixated on this pentatonic thing. There was a period of time in the grunge era where people would come in for a lesson. They'd be like, I don't need to know theory, you know. But again, with the pentatonic, because so many of us just learn the shapes and we just kind of, you know, learn theory about other things after that, we have this very strange dichotomy of how we look at the pentatonic. But applying the language of music to the pentatonic really allows us to do some really cool things. So, all right, I'm kind of a little bit behind schedule here. Jose, always a pleasure. I saw you and saluted you before, but I can salute you again. I think I'm going to go to E flat. It doesn't sound like it. What is that? Oh, I'm in B, right. Holy cow. So the funny thing is that it's an interesting phenomenon where you're kind of like, oh, I think I'm here doing this. And I'm like, you know, I was kind of thinking that my tonal center was there, but it was really... It's the other thing about kind of really focusing on intervals. Oh, sorry. I think I'm in B, yep. Because one of the things about guys like Neil Sean, they just kind of know where to put their fingers, and it always sounds like, you know... Sorry, the tremolo is making this. Got to get off that note. He just really is just singing with the guitar because he has an understanding with his fingers of the intervallic relationship between the notes. And that's just something that, well, he is Neil Schon. But that's something that, learning to kind of have a deeper understanding of the intervallic relationship between the notes and kind of learning to think with the intervals, minor third. So then they're kind of using that minor third at the kind of the natural 2 and the natural 7 harmonic minor. Kind of going, oh, I can go to the flat 3 and the 1. So when you hear things, I don't have a minor third to work with there unless I go to minor. But the intervals are so important, and it's, again, not something that we normally think about when we're thinking about the pentatonic. We don't think about kind of like a minor third, major second, minor third, major second, minor third, major second, minor third, major second, minor third. But when you begin to do that, seems to have a tendency to slow me down, at least, and I start playing more intentionally. I think more intentional is a great thing. All right. Wait until your next lesson. Paul, I love you dearly. Antlers Rig Rundown. Guitarist Rob Johnson, what's going on, my man? Hey. We were on a guitar compilation together. I know you. Hi. Welcome back to the 90s. What's going on, my man? How are you? If you're still here, and if I missed you, my apologies. But hey, I know exactly who you are. Great to see you. Gosh darn it. And yes, the Helix Stadium is going to be amazing. And we were kind of like roaming the planet playing instrumental guitar music right around 95, and I had a break between my that album, the last, and the one that followed it. But great to see you. And yes, right, Rob Johnson in the house, esteemed great guitar player. And Chris Alexander knows who you are. So there we go. Hey, what's going on, Tara? What's happening? Thanks again for rallying the troops last week. I managed to figure out how not to have Facebook break my blues. So let's talk about a slightly modal interpretation of playing intervals. So once you begin to think intervallically, so there's my tonic. If I get to the, I will encourage you to kind of find I'm here. A looper would do. But really just spend some time really feeling the intervals without actually looking. And even if you hit some bad notes, it allows you to, if you go, oh, I only need to go there, and that intuition, that touch. And don't be afraid to go. Hit some of those chromatic notes. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that was what you gotta watch that flat too if you're in minor. I was intentionally. But you gotta be really careful how you cross that. Even though, you know, we know we're in E minor in this case. So that little chromatic actually is a good way to get there. So the idea is, because your ear is kind of wanting to hear. And that's basically E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B. The idea is you can kind of go. So you got that. So you kind of. So you're just kind of walking that. And you're really leaning into it. So as you walk through it, it sounds like you're intending to do it because you are. The neat thing about that is it's not the flat 5, which in minor isn't necessarily my kind of vibe, minor for Dorian. You can get away with a lot of really neat chromaticism. Then in minor, it's just a little. That kind of worked. You just don't want to stay at that. Or maybe you can't. I don't know. All right. All right. Nitin, hello, 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 hello. How are you, my friend? Where are you? Great to see you. Hello, hello, hello. Mr. I've never dropped anything. But you are the guy that cut down the cherry tree, so there is that. Jim, such a pleasure having you around, as always. A guy I play with still has an HT500X, and every time I think, how does he get such a good tone out of it? It's such an old unit. I mean, they're great pieces of gear. You know, holy cow. I'm obviously doing a really bad job staying on top of the chat. Albert, oh yeah, the Echoplex. It's not broken, it's just broken down a little bit. Ada, how are you doing, my friend? Or Ada. Love that photo, by the way. Oh, I bought a cab this week. It's an orange 112 cab with a Celestian Vintage 30. So correct me if I'm wrong. You're in... Where are you? You're in the Orient, right? And so first of all, great cabinet. The orange cabinets are great. First of all, if you go on to Reverb here in the States, it's one of the always top-selling guitar cabinets. Great cabinet build, which means quality-wise and sound-wise, it's a great cabinet. And that in combination with the Vintage 30, great combination. Well done. Oh, that's awesome. Congratulations, dude. Yeah. Okay, hey. Listening while driving back from lessons, you poor guy. I hope I don't crash your car. Ah! Hello, Braxton. What's going on? I got one of the Rolling Stones. There's the Rolling Stones and there's the Rolling Stands. I'm gonna circle back up in a moment, Jim. I'm gonna get you. I got one of those stands. What do you think is the largest size pedal board you think you can safely hold? So I actually have a whatever the big giant pedal board is, and depending on how daring and how flat it is, and the use of bungees, and how wide you've got the board, and depending on how the distribution of weight is and how much you're going to move it, you could probably get away with one of those big pedal trains. I'm pretty sure I put that on top there. The second largest pedal train board I put up on top and use bungees for that, multiple times and zero fear factor. And obviously, I'm rocking the Helix and the HD 500 there, and they're really cool. The other thing is that over in one of the bowels of this room, the person that I bought the first one of those from built a little kind of plywood, half-inch-ish kind of shelf with a little, a little trim, such that there was a shelf at the end so nothing would kind of fall off the end in case you actually kind of brought it up like that. And, it for some pieces of gear, rather than just supporting it with kind of, if you will, the underarms and the outer arms, having that piece of wood for something like a mixer or something is also a good thing. So I will kind of try seeing if the last time I went to put my big pedal train board on the top, I think I had enough cables on the bottom that I kind of went, oh, this is a problem. I didn't have the cables routed well enough. But I think you could totally get away with whatever the big kind of pedal train board is on there. So congratulations. Are you enjoying it? That's what I want to know. You're in Pittsburgh. Okay, Nandini is traveling these days. Okay. Well, first of all, great to see you, as always. How's the practicing coming along? That's what we want to know. PRO, Performing Rights Organization? Poorly routed organs? In any case, Scott, always a pleasure, my man. And I'm on my way back up. Jim, I'm on my way back to you. So how did Agora respond to your playing upon first impressions? All right, first of all, you are... There we go. I figured that was you. Hang on. There we go. So, I'm being asked on two different communication pipelines about the same event. So, Jim, Agora is awesome. So I was there with Brian and Bradford when we kind of got a chance to do the kind of the playthrough. In particular, the thing that would float your boat, there is a new AC30 that's kind of new to the ecosystem, and pulled up the normal input on one side and the not bright, brilliant input on the other, and hard panned them through this custom shop telly that they had there. And kind of the moment we just pulled it up, no delay, no reverb, no compression, no nothing. Everybody just went, wow. And, it was so funny. At the end of the video that I put together for talking about Stadium, at the end I threw in an old video I did, not for the HD 500 but the HD 500X. And one of the other things that we did was we were toggling back and forth between the two channels of the deluxe reverb. And ironically, as I was looking at kind of what I did in the sound design for that video that I did a decade plus ago, I'm like, oh, look at this. So sorry, we in addition to kind of pulling up the two different inputs for the AC30 and panning them just to create that beautiful separation, I did the same thing. Although we just kind of went back and forth between the normal and the vibrato channel on the deluxe reverb on that little thing that's at the end of the Helix Stadium video. I did that exact same thing with the 2 different channels of the deluxe reverb. I'm like, kind of like, I guess 10 years later, I don't have any new tricks. But yet at the same time, using the 2 different channels, they complement each other as long as everything is phase coherent. By the way, expecting one channel of an amp and the second channel of an amp, of an actual tube amp, to always be phase coherent is not necessarily the best thing to do. Most people do not imagine that a guitar player is going to plug into channel 1 and channel 2, and ideally they should be phase coherent. But it's entirely possible that, your wave's going up on one side and it's going down on the other, which basically means they cancel each other out, with the exception of kind of any overlap where they're not kind of, the frequencies are different, and then you're just going to have that kind of combing effect of the stuff that's the leftovers. Kind of think of it like crusty peanut butter on a knife that was in this beautiful jar of Skippy, and all you've got left over is dried crusty peanut butter. What an analogy. However, what's great about the kind of the in the box thing is that there is, and actually it was one of the maybe I can't talk about that. We won't talk about that. But the idea of phase coherency is a thing. So yeah. So hey, Griffin, you're back. Gotta go. Happy weekend. Happy Father's Day to all. And by the way, and Griffin, always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks so much. Bean Boozle. Hey, what's going on? What's my favorite guitar riff to play? I would say. Probably all right now. That vibrato. It's the perfect button on the end. It's so unpretentious and it's so pretty and it's so vocal. It's just kind of one of the things, kind of like, I probably play it a couple of times a week just because it's so fun, And if I... Definitely that's also one of my favorites, just because it's so beautifully pentatonic. Like, there's something about a distorted guitar in the pentatonic scale that's just like magic. Oh, awesome. Thank you very much. The best part is it feels so kind of like, and yeah, awesome. I had to return the first one. The packing of the stand from the manufacturer is horrible. So, first of all, my apologies. So the interesting thing is, the first one showed up. It was in the standalone box. The second one, it came in an enclosing Sweetwater box, perhaps like yours. So it's entirely possible, because I mentioned, I think, Sweetwater in the video, that somebody at Sweetwater kind of said, we need to fix this problem, because first of all, there's returns and it costs Sweetwater money to kind of be doing stuff. And I'm sure when there's a problem with the manufacturer packaging, the manufacturer probably sometimes has to pay for that. However, it's still a drag, and the packaging is lame. So the first one I got, the new one, there was a hole in the side of it. So the Allen wrench that you use to adjust that top table, if you will, it was floating around free inside the thing. There was a gaping hole. If that had come out, I wouldn't have been able to assemble the thing. Fortunately, it was kind of a little bent, but I just kind of bent it back into shape, and I was like, it's here, it's working, it's not going to break, fine. But I'm glad you're up and running, so that's really cool. And so, absolutely, right, so the interesting thing is... So I actually don't know Mark Knopfler, and the funny thing, I don't know Mark, but I also don't know any of his kind of his riffage. And the funny thing is that at the time Dire Straits broke, when most of you weren't born yet, I wasn't into the playing with the fingers thing. So it always seemed kind of strange. It's like, and I know this sounds really stupid to say, especially how much I play with my fingers. Like, why doesn't the guy use a pick? I mean, it was just really, and of course, well, it was iconic to his sound and like, all that stuff. And he's had an incredibly storied career. And there's a song, by the way, for those of you that are looking for what I consider to be the ultimate Mark Knopfler song. There's a song called "The Planet of New Orleans." I'm getting goosebumps. It is magic. So it's kind of Mark Knopfler, not emulating Jeff Beck, but it's kind of if Mark Knopfler could morph into a little bit of Jeff Beck, the playing, and it's got Manu Katché on drums, and the drum part is brilliant. And so, it's just really, really special. So the interesting thing is, somehow, obviously, Mark Knopfler is a brilliant songwriter, musician, and he's got a memorable voice. People don't want to hear me sing. And a voice that's memorable in a good way. My voice is memorable in a bad way. And there are things inside my kind of inside kind of some of that plucky picking sort of stuff that I can definitely go, oh, there's some Mark Knopfler in there. But I never really dissected his playing, which is kind of stupid because he's such a great player. First of all, when nobody's around, sing your heart out. However, I feel your pain. My wife is tolerant of many things, and she tolerates my vocals, and she allows me to sing. But she can really sing, and I know how she really feels about my vocalization. I, in my mind, believe that I am a good enough singer to sing BVs, and she doesn't always agree with me. Backing vocals, by the way. All right. Hey, by the way, it's coming up on 11 here, and I have some stuff I need to do. So I'm about to check out of this. Now, next weekend, on Friday night, I'm seeing Metallica, and on Sunday, I'm seeing Metallica, and on Saturday, I'm at a hotel in the South Bay. So I don't know kind of how I'm going to manage the streaming part of this and kind of what kind of throughput I'm going to have. But I'm going to try and give it a whirl. And so I'll bring my laptop with me if I need to do it from there. My initial plan was to try and sneak home here and then sneak back over there. But I don't know if that's going to actually fly in the scheme of the day plans. So I will do all the best I can to connect at 9 o'clock. We'll probably go for an hour, and who knows what we're going to do, but it's going to be fun. First of all, thank you for spending, again, your Saturday morning with me. What a privilege, and how much fun have we had. Sean, you're still here, my man. Great to see you. Happy Father's Day, by the way. Happy Father's Day to you. Happy Father's Day to you. Happy Father's Day, everyone. Happy Father's Day to you. All of y'all that are dads out there, happy Father's Day. It's great to see you, Braxel. Never apologize for being late coming. It's always a pleasure to have you here. I'm glad you got your stand up and rolling. And, I'm sorry that that box showed up like that. I'm glad I ranted about it in the video. But at the same time, I'm glad they got the second one for you. Eric, always a pleasure. Thanks so much. The funny thing is that it's going to be the guy that I'm going with and his wife are kind of patrons of mine. I'm very, very thankful and very grateful. And kind of at the last minute, they kind of invited Melissa and I to go. Although I don't necessarily think it was a last minute decision, but I'm really thrilled. First of all, I love Metallica. I love Kirk Hammett. I am. All right, little story time. Oh, first of all, look at all this. So years ago, there's a flyer around for a show at the Fab Map, the Fabulous Mabuhay. Any of the hardcore Metallica fans are going to know what I'm talking about. And Kirk at that point was still playing in Exodus, And so there was a Guitar Death Showdown. There's a band called Anvil Chorus. And I kind of, so basically they kind of had 2 amps, and then different guitar players would take turn playing. So I got there early, and I'm kind of there warming up, kind of running. And I kind of am doing that, and this guy sitting next to me was like, "Where'd you learn to do that?" I was like, "Oh, well, this guy, Joe Satriani, here's his number." And the guy sitting next to me was a guy named Kirk. And I talked about it, Kirk, with Kirk later, a couple of years back, and he said, in his recollection, a guy named Danny Gill also gave him Joe's information. But the point being is that, it was a kind of a really neat night because, I was kind of this kind of 18-year-old, slightly geeky guitar player. I had short hair. And Kirk was a rock star back then. I just remember watching him come out on stage, leather jacket, bare chest, flying V, Marshall stack, and he just had swagger. And I was like, I want to be that guy. And, although, I am attempting to do my own thing, you watch Kirk and you just kind of go like, that dude, whatever it is, he's got. And I just love that. And it's, it's a special thing. So I'm going to really look forward to seeing him and that band. Their sound is insane. But the other thing is I'm looking forward to seeing flippin' Pantera. Zach playing dime bag riffs. Holy flippin' cow, right? And as Chris pointed out, the Biscuit is on there. So I am just red cap and all. I am a huge Limp Bizkit fan, just huge, right? And so it's just going to be great. And then the other band, gosh darn it, Biscuit, Pantera, and right, it's Andy James, Five Finger Death Punch. I think is going to be on there unless they're alternating out. But Andy is a bad boy and a really nice guy, but it's a brutal guitar player. So like, it's going to be some sick guitar playing in great bands. So it's going to be awesome. All right, hang on, let me just scroll up a little bit. I guess I need to practice texting. Hold on. There we go. All right. Double dose of Metallica. I'm so stoked. Tom, what's going on? Hey, hold on a second. How you doing, my friend? Always a pleasure. Thank you again for that gig back. That was very thoughtful. I guess I need to practice texting. Sorry, did I miss something? I must have missed something. In any case, great to see you, Albert. As always, man, love you, bro. But you know that. I get Father's and Grandfather Day this year. Salute to you, my friend. All right, Shredding Finn. Awesome. That sounds awesome. Very cool. Dance your heart out and have a great time at church as well. Awesome. Nick, I can't wait to see you in Vegas. And nice to be in touch. And I love that guitar, dude. That's so killer. No, but the thing is that, when you say, hey, this is a really cool piece of gear, and you're kind of like, hey, I'm down with this, and somebody has a bad experience, Melissa and I had this conversation. I love this phrase, to protect and to serve, to protect your dollars and serve you in the process of whatever gear you're buying. I want to make sure you have a great experience. If there's something that I'm using and I'm like, hey, this is really cool, I love this. If you have a bad experience with that, it's not that it reflects poorly on me, which it does, but it actually makes me feel bad because the goal is to help people make decisions that are always positive, right? And it's not a perfect world, but at the same time, it matters. So in any case, glad the second one was the charm. Awesome. Anvil Chorus, come on, Albert. Metal Mondays at the Old Waldorf. There we go. Rinky Dinky, the best artist as 58-year-old as seen is Madison Cunningham opening for John Mayer. Totally awesome. Hang on a second. So I don't know. Hang on. I'm going to copy that and bring that over. I will check out Madison Cunningham. In my world, 58 is young. In any case, yes, Andy James, he is a mean guy. So in any case, thank you all for hanging out. What a pleasure. Ada, I'm planning on buying the next Steel Singer. I don't know if it's, I guess it's New X Steel Singer. I'm trying to get a Dumble sound out of my Night Train hat. Well, that's the thing is, it's like if you clean things up a little bit and then use that, and just try moving where the gain is. Well, are you trying to? Well, with the steel string, it's a clean amp. So, but you probably knew that. So the Steel String Singer, just quick aside, is a 150 watt Howard Dumble amp. It's basically a ton of headroom, and it's a beautiful clean sound. And so the thing about it is that it's that kind of singing clean that you might associate kind of with a pedal steel. But the point being is that over the guitar, if you think about John Mayer, that singing beautiful tone, and I am of the belief, I saw John at the PRS event, their whatever anniversary event, 50 years maybe. And John has this Bandmaster amp, and he always brings that Bandmaster amp. I am very much of the impression that I think that's an amp that Dumble modified. And if I'll just say it, when I get the chance to meet John Mayer, because I'm going to breathe life into those dry bones. I'm just going to it's going to happen. I have faith. I would say Dumbleize, because Dumble didn't just Dumbleize amps with his name on it. He also did other amps. And so kind of excited. So in any case, Ada, congratulations on your new cabinet. I'm super excited for you. That's a great cabinet choice. And so much fun. And I look forward to seeing you and everybody else next Saturday. God willing, I'm going to have enough signal at the hotel there that it's all going to be groovy. So until then, have a great one. Thanks so much for hanging out. What a pleasure. And anybody that didn't kind of join in on the questions in the chat, I just want to invite you, if you got questions about guitars, gear, theory. For vocals, I'm probably not your guy, but intervals, I'm all in. Interval singing, interval recognition, anything, bring it in the questions. It's my pleasure to be able to help out anything that I can. Thanks again, everybody. Have a tremendous week, and I hopefully will see you without any sputtering next Saturday at 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks again. Cheers.